All right, let's dive into this deep dive. We're tackling the 2022 horror flick X. I'm guessing you're here for more than just like the surface level scares, right?
Right.
You want the themes, the characters, what makes it tick.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they hear X, they kind of just think, oh, slasher film, right?
Oh, totally.
Like on the surface, it's 1979. You've got this group of young filmmakers. They head off to rural Texas to make an adult film.
Sounds familiar, yeah. Classic slasher setup.
Exactly. But it uses those expectations, those tropes, to deliver something a lot more, I think.
More profound, yeah.
Definitely. Like one of the things that I thought was really interesting is this contrast, this like really stark contrast between the young filmmakers who are all about pushing boundaries, they're really embracing their sexuality, and then you have this older couple, Pearl and Howard, who own the farm where they're shooting.
Right. And they represent this like whole other generation, right?
Yeah. Totally different social norms, expectations.
Yeah, definitely. And the clash between those two becomes like the core of the horror.
Oh, absolutely. Like it's fascinating how the film, the source material, really emphasizes, X and how it dives into this the theme of youth and aging. It's so complex.
Yeah, it's not just like a surface level, oh, young people versus old people kind of
Yeah,
thing.
no, not at all. And the character of Pearl, it's so striking. She's like, she just yearns for her lost youth, and it manifests in these really terrifying ways. And it's worth noting, that Mia Goth plays both Maxine, one of the filmmakers, Andy Pearl.
Whoa, wait, hold on. She plays both roles.
She does.
That's amazing. How does that even work?
It's such a brilliant casting choice because it visually reinforces like what the film's doing.
Oh, okay.
With this whole exploration of aging and desire, you see Pearl looking at Maxine and her friends, and it's almost as if she's looking at like a younger version of herself.
Yeah.
And the film doesn't shy away from showing her bitterness, the resentment.
Toward this younger generation.
Yeah, and it fuels the horror that unfolds.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like she's literally haunted by her own lost youth.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, that's something that's like universally unsettling, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like that fear of getting older and watching your dreams, I don't know, just fade away.
It definitely raises some questions about how society views aging.
Especially for women.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, how do you deal with those feelings, the regret, the loss?
How do you make peace with time passing?
Yeah.
Okay, whoa, so we're going deep here.
Yeah.
And we haven't even like touched on the other characters yet. I was really surprised by how like fleshed out they are for a horror movie,
They really do go beyond just those typical slasher stereotypes.
Yeah.
And each character brings something different. It has a lot of depth.
Like Maxine with that line that I will not accept a life I do not deserve. I mean, that's powerful.
Right.
Does that resonate with you at all?
It definitely speaks to that desire, a desire for something more, achieving your full potential. But X, it also asks, at what cost?
Ooh.
Because Maxine's ambition, it leads her and her friends into a really dangerous situation.
Right. So the film's kind of exploring that fine line between like self-belief and recklessness.
Exactly. And the other characters like Wayne, RJ, Lorraine.
Oh, and Lorraine's played by Jen Ortega.
Yes. And Bobby Lynn and Jackson, they all add these different layers to that exploration. They each have this different relationship with fame.
And the adult film industry.
Right. And those contrasting attitudes, they create this tension within the group.
It's like RJ's coming at it from this artistic perspective.
Yeah.
And Wayne's totally focused on like the business side, the money.
Yeah. And then you have Lorraine, who's, at first she's like this innocent bystander.
Right.
But then she gets drawn in.
To this world of liberation.
Yeah. And that causes some friction with RJ and Bobby Lynn. She's completely unapologetic, which, it challenges those societal norms of the time.
Totally. So X is using these characters and their journeys to explore this whole idea of repression versus liberation.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So we have this clash of generations. We've got this whole exploration of youth and aging, this idea of repression versus liberation, and it's all within this slasher film package.
Yeah.
It's like X is using horror to examine like these really complex social issues.
And that's one of the things that's so compelling about it, I think. It's not just about, scares. It's about telling a deeper story about human nature, the choices we make, the consequences, all that. But that's a conversation for part 2.
Yes, definitely. So much more to unpack. We'll be back with part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll go even deeper into X, the themes, and then we'll start to analyze the visual style.
Absolutely.
It's really unique.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure to join us for that.
So we were talking about, how X uses these horror tropes, but it's got like all these other layers.
Yeah. Like, it's not just, a typical slasher. You actually end up, like, caring about the characters.
You do, and it really shows what happens, when they make certain choices.
Right.
Like, remember how we were talking about Maxine?
Yeah.
And how driven she is?
Yeah, her ambition.
But that ambition puts her in a lot of danger.
It's almost like there's a dark side to ambition, especially when it's mixed with desperation.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to another big theme that X digs into, the dark side of fame.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They're all drawn to the adult film industry for different reasons, right?
Right.
But there's this underlying desire for validation, recognition,
They want to be seen.
Yeah, they want to be desired. They want to leave their mark.
That makes a lot of sense, and you see how that plays out differently for each character. Like Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne's all about the money.
And the notoriety.
Totally. But then you've got someone like RJ, and for him, it's more about the art. He's trying to express himself.
And then Maxine, she's, I don't know, it's almost like this primal need to prove herself, to break free from, like, her small-town life.
And that line, I will not accept a life I do not deserve. It really sums up that hunger,
It does.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the film doesn't, like, paint fame as this totally positive thing.
Right.
It's not just follow your dreams and everything will be great. It shows the bad stuff, too.
Yeah, the potential pitfalls, the compromises people make.
That darkness underneath.
It's really interesting how X uses the adult film industry to explore that theme.
Because in the late 70s, that was, like, really on the fringes.
It was taboo, dangerous even.
So the characters they're already in this world of shadows, where the rules are kind of blurred.
Yeah, it's a perfect setting for those darker impulses,
That drive people to fame.
And then you have Pearl and Howard. They're this older generation.
With even stricter norms.
Right. And their desires are repressed. And their resentment toward this younger generation, it's terrifying.
It is. It's like they see the freedom, the liberation the filmmakers have, and it triggers something.
Something primal.
Yeah, envious, destructive.
What's really fascinating, though, is how X connects that repressed desire to the violence.
Oh, yeah, the kill scenes. They're brutal, but they're not just, like, gratuitous.
No, they're symbolic.
Of all that inner turmoil.
The unfulfilled longings, the rage against time, all of that.
It makes me think about those comparisons we talked about before between T. West and Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, good point. On the surface, their films seem so different,
Yeah.
but they both use genre to explore these deeper themes.
Exactly. They're not afraid to be provocative, to push those boundaries.
Totally. And T. West, he has such a distinct visual style, like Tarantino.
Oh, yeah, the way he uses color, lighting, it's masterful.
The source material points out, he uses these long shots that make you feel like you're almost like a voyeur.
Ooh, that's creepy. But it makes sense with the themes of observation and desire.
It's really clever. Adds another layer.
It's like you're not supposed to be seeing this.
Exactly. And that voyeuristic thing, it plays into the sexuality and repression of the film in such an interesting way.
It does. It's like the camera is a character itself.
It is, observing everything. And then there's that whole element of homage in X, like he's clearly drawing inspiration from those 70s slashers.
Especially Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, totally. But then he puts his own spin on it.
It feels fresh.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got these complex themes, amazing cast, a director with a vision.
But we can't forget about Pearl.
Oh, right.
The prequel.
It's not just like an extra thing. It really adds to the story.
It gives us so much more insight into Pearl, who, let's be honest, she's the heart of it all. Yeah. We'll dive into Pearl in part 3, see how it flips everything and gives us a whole new perspective. We're back. Parts 1 and 2, we dug into X, got into the themes, the characters, Ty West's directing. But now it's all about the prequel, Pearl.
Okay.
We got to explore how she became, well, her,
Yeah, Pearl is so interesting because it totally changes how we see her, from X. I mean, in X, she's this monster, pure rage, resentment. But the prequel, we see young Pearl, and she's trapped. She wants this life she thinks she should have, that she deserves.
Yeah. It's like watching two completely different movies. Like the whole tone, the look, the kind of horror, it all changes.
Totally, but they're still connected. They're both part of this this bigger picture of this woman, a woman pushed to the edge.
Exactly. And Pearl isn't just some like typical horror prequel. It's more like a character study. It's a drama. It gets into this dark side of ambition, you know. And what happens when your dreams just they don't come true?
It is. And one thing the source material really highlights is how Pearl flips that whole final girl thing. Like we're used to rooting for that girl, the one who survives the killer.
Right.
But in Pearl, we're seeing things from the killer's point of view, her reasons, her pain. And it makes you think about these horror stories in a whole new way.
It does. And Mia Goth, she's just amazing again.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. You feel Pearl's vulnerability, her desperation. It's both, I don't know, captivating and really sad to watch.
And it's interesting how both X and Pearl, they get into this fear of getting older,
Yeah.
especially for women.
Yeah. Pearl wants fame. She wants to be recognized. But it comes from this terror of being forgotten, of becoming invisible as she ages. And that's such a big fear in our culture, isn't it?
It is. And Pearl, it's set back in 1918, so
Mhm.
it's even more intense, you know. The world is so much more restrictive for women then. She wants to be a star, but she has no options,
Yeah.
really. And that just makes her spiral even worse.
Totally. And there's this one scene in Pearl, I don't know if you remember it. She's talking to her sister-in-law and she just lets everything out, her deepest desires.
Oh, yeah, that was intense.
It is. It's so raw, so emotional. You see the real her, the pain, the longing. It's all there. It shows how Pearl uses horror to get at something much deeper.
It's not just about the scary stuff.
No, it's about the mental and emotional torment. This woman who's trapped by what society tells her she can be and her own dreams that just can't happen.
And you said earlier how the violence in Pearl is even more disturbing than in X.
I think it is.
And it's because
Yeah.
we get it. We see her emotional struggle, how it turns into something so dark.
It's like this slow burn, this descent into madness. It just builds and builds. And then by the end, yeah, it's horrifying, but you also kind of feel for her.
It's strange. So you have these two movies, X and Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
Same characters, same themes, but so different.
Right.
They both like look at the American dream, but that dark side of it. They're about ambition, getting older, what we want, but they do it in such unique ways. It makes you think.
Definitely. And I guess that's the question for you listening. What hits you harder? The in-your-face horror of X or Pearl with all the psychological stuff? Which one really gets to you?
That's a good question. It's been quite a ride, this deep dive. X with all the blood and the terror. And then Pearl, her story, just so unsettling. We really got into it. We unpacked the layers, the characters. T. West, he's a great filmmaker.
He is. And both of these films, they make you look deeper. They make you think about your own wants and fears, the darkness that's in all of us. Horror doesn't have to just be about jump scares and gore.
It can make you think about, what it means to be human.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you haven't seen X and Pearl, you should check them out. They'll stick with you, I promise. They make you think about your own life, your dreams, the choices you make. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.